In 1975, Spain became a democracy, ending decades of dictatorship under Francisco Franco. Before that, in the 1930s, Spain had given women the right to vote and run for office during the Second Republic. But after Franco's victory in the Civil War, those rights were stripped away. His Spain was conservative, authoritarian, and deeply patriarchal. The church shaped public life, and women were pushed out of it. But since Franco's death in 1975, the country has transformed. Spain is now seen as a progressive force in Europe, having legalized same-sex marriage over 20 years ago, introducing consent laws, and ranking fourth in the EU for gender equality. Today, women hold more than half of the ministerial roles in government, and yet Spain is facing a crisis. Gender-based violence, or Violencia Machista, remains one of its most urgent human rights issues, as femicide numbers and assaults have been rising year after year. So how can this happen in a country widely seen as a feminist success story? This documentary looks at the roots of the problem and asks what Spain's struggle with machismo can teach us about progress, backlash, and what still needs to change. The rise of Franco's dictatorship marked a sharp turn towards patriarchy, and for women, this meant losing basic rights.
Women didn't have full civic personality. Their legal rights came through their husband or their father, unless they were widowed. They were highly constrained in what they could do legally, let alone socially. And one of the legal features of the Franco regime was that men retained the legal right to kill their adulterous spouse. You'd have social practices that certainly when I first started going to Spain in the 1980s would seem quite foreign to me. I mean, you'd see a man hit a woman in a bar and nobody would intervene.
When the regime collapsed, decades of repression gave way to a surge of political and personal expression.
That desire for freedom and equality became really very, very powerful.
To understand how the country has transformed, I travelled to Spain to speak to women about the culture of machismo, the fight against it, and how it shapes daily life.
The transition to democracy marked a new chapter in Spain's history, and it's easy to forget how recent it really was. I wanted to speak to someone from the generation that grew up in that era.
Marina Cristelli Gaston grew up in Sevilla in the 1950s.
Aquí hasta los 21 años necesitabas la autorización de tu padre para todo, para el carnet de conducir, para salir fuera. Tu madre tenía que llevar un papel firmado de tu padre para viajar. Y en el banco lo mismo, en el banco si no estaba, tu padre no te firmaba, no había nada a tu nombre. Pero como estábamos aquí, hemos vivido así, pues la verdad que nos hemos enterado ya de mayores, el problema que había. No se podía hacer huelgas, no podías ir en contra de nada, porque la policía entraba hasta dentro de lo que era el campus universitario, podía entrar la policía perfectamente. Primero te daban y después te preguntaban, ¿entiendes?
After Franco, the 1978 Constitution offered a fresh start. Protests were legal and calls for equality grew louder. But could laws really undo decades of patriarchal rule? And what does equality mean now, beyond the legislation?
España ha tenido una legislación muy vanguardista en materia de igualdad de género. Nuestra legislación sobre igualdad y prohibición de la discriminación entre mujeres y hombres, nuestra ley contra la violencia de género fueron pioneras, nuestra ley del solo sí es sí, intentando establecer el consentimiento en el centro, ¿no? Han sido pioneras, pero claro, una cosa es que exista la legislación y otra cosa es que se aplique y que existan los mecanismos para que se aplique. Por un lado, aunque nuestra legislación reconozca la igualdad, en la realidad queda mucho por hacer, como sabemos y como nos dicen los datos. Pues, por ejemplo, los datos de brecha salarial o, por ejemplo, los datos de violencia de género, ¿vale? O sea que estamos lejos de haber conseguido la igualdad. Eso por un lado. Por otro lado, estamos ahora asistiendo a esta reacción, ¿no? Pues eso, a todos los últimos avances del feminismo. Parece que la sociedad española está virando o está volviendo a posiciones reaccionarias, a posiciones antifeministas, Pues hay que tener cuidado porque cuesta mucho conquistar derechos, pero cuesta nada retroceder.
It really makes me question how secure Spain's progress is in this regard, especially given the increase in far-right rhetoric over the past 10 years.
As an American student in Madrid, Stella Heilman has noticed how deeply machismo is still embedded in everyday life.
I was at a bar outside and this guy just kind of grabbed me and was kissing me, and I know that if I was like in most other places I've been, people would be like, oh, what's happening? Like, she wouldn't just do that. But here, even my friends that are men and Spanish couldn't understand that something bad was happening, and someone else that knew the other guy had to like let them know that something was wrong. And I think that there's a little bit less of people looking down on each other for those those acts. I think in my town, if people were to do that, their friends would be like, yo bro, what's your problem, a little bit more. But here it's kind of like an encouragement.
Stella's story isn't unusual. Across the country, reported cases of gender-based violence are climbing, and on the surface, it looks like things are getting worse. But there's another way to read the data, one that reveals changing attitudes and growing trust.
No es que como registramos más denuncias por violencia sexual o denuncias por violencia machista o feminicidios, no es que haya más violencia, es que por fin se está denunciando. Esto significa dos cosas. Primero, que institucionalmente hay un trabajo que ha calado y las mujeres van a denunciar porque creen que las instituciones las pueden ayudar, es decir, confían, hay una confianza institucional. Y luego, por otro, que hay una conciencia de que es violencia. Hace 20 años es que probablemente infinidad de mujeres en sus casas ni siquiera fueran conscientes de que estaban sufriendo violencia. Ninguna mujer en este país está libre de ser víctima, eso es lo primero. Y luego, socialmente, tú puedes saberlo y no denunciarlo. Puedes creer que lo que estás viendo no es violencia, sino que sigue siendo una cosa normal.
Spain has gained international recognition for its feminist laws and strong institutions. But for many women, that progress hasn't yet transformed daily life. What continues to shape this struggle isn't just policy, but the strength of Spain's feminist movement.
And the main challenge now is ensuring that strength doesn't fade, and the progress that Spain has made isn't lost.
What's that scene?